Welcome to Grumpy Old Avatars with your hosts, Malvin Zerator, Deuce and Dragonart, and Slim Warrior.
Hello, everybody. I don't know how you're feeling, but I'm not feeling too brilliant. Welcome to Grumpy Old Avatars. I'm here today with co-host Slim Warrior. Hello, Slimmy.
Send her victorious, happy and glorious.
Long to my neighbours.
And with our guest tonight, Nyna Slate.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. We haven't had you yet, Nyna. And, well, you might be wondering where Mal Burns' writer is, but actually he's probably better staying a bit quiet. But he is represented by the turkey. How are you, Mal?
Do I feel like a turkey? I don't know. I am most grumpy. I'm grumpy with BT as usual. I'm grumpy with Windows 7. I am grumpy with Second Life. And I am grumpy with royal couplings. Oh, you mustn't call them royal couplings. They're royal weedings.
Right. Well,
Yes.
We're here today to complain about men. I was promised last week that I could complain about men, but I wasn't allowed to. I had to film because one of the men I wanted to complain about wasn't here. But Slimmy, would you like to kick us off this week and tell us what made you grumpy?
Oh yes, the fact that after the royal wedding today, that there wasn't a jolly good DJ hopping up on the balcony and giving everybody a good rave for the afternoon. That would have been great fun.
Well, I believe they're raving as we sit here in the doldrums.
Yes, probably all raving about the hideous hats everybody wore to the wedding today. Oh no, but we're talking about men, aren't we? Yes, why don't men wear hats? Actually, that's a good thought, isn't it? Maybe we should be grumpy about the fact that the women just wore hideous hats and the men didn't wear any.
Nyna, do you know what we're talking about?
Well, a little bit. You know, being in the States, and I haven't had a chance to watch the wedding today.
Yeah, well, we believe that it was actually on every single network in the US.
It probably was. It probably was. We make a big deal out of everything.
Well, I think it's rather nice you make a big deal out of us. Mal, did you watch the wedding? You with your inferior technology?
Yes. One was subjected to the routines of the day, or 12 hours of it, or whatever. It was engaging.
I should tell everybody here that...
It's a pretty young thing, really.
Oh, dear. I should tell everybody here, actually, that Mal Burns' writer was given the choice of wearing a wedding dress or doing an impression of Prince Philip. We suspect he's taken the latter road. Okay, Slimmy, kick us off.
Oh, I can't. Sorry, I'm choking on a cheese straw here. Yes, men. Men and cheese straws and hats. What are we being grumpy about? Hats.
Weddings.
Hats.
Oh, all right. Hats
Yes,
will do.
yes, hats. Women that wear hats that look like TV aerials. Or they look as though they're about to charge into the bull ring.
Are you
Headlong.
talking about a certain blue hat?
Yes. The TV
I
aerial.
rather
She was-
liked it.
It was probably a secret Twitter thing for her iPhone so she could tweet secretly in the church. She was just trying to get a good reception.
I rather liked that hat. It was sculptural, but I wouldn't have liked to have sat behind it, I have to say. Nor
No.
would I have liked to have worn it.
No, and there are a lot of hats with a lot of pokey bits. I did see one lady, and her hat not only filled her head and the whole of her chair, but also half of the chair behind her as well. So I really would not have liked to have been that person behind her. And it was all pointy with fluffy stuff all over it.
I have a question, specifically for the ladies, but Mal Burns will probably know the answer to this as well, as he is, you know, he's gained in sagacity over his long-lived life. Why is there such a fuss over the wedding dress? Nobody knows.
It was such stale.
Nobody's got any idea, really.
They sell it all to the designs have been copied by the high street at this very moment and being readied for export to bring money into the UK.
Right, so she could have worn any old stuff, couldn't she, really?
Well, she could have gone to Monsoon and bought a dress. Do you think anybody would have noticed?
Monsoon might have noticed. Anyway, she was wearing a dress and all the television commentators were talking about was a dress. It was very odd to hear them all talking about the dress. Actually, what is much more interesting is the political repercussions of these two getting married. Because she is a commoner.
Not anymore, you see, because she's a duchess now. She's the Duchess of Cambridge. So she won't be known as she won't be known as Princess
Baroness.
Catherine or Countess or anything. She's actually a duchess, and I think you're allowed to become a duchess, aren't you, when you're a commoner?
No.
Diana was a commoner too.
Who's a commoner?
Diana was a commoner too.
Oh, you say
Diana?
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 And the chosen day? The last-
Diana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I think
yes,
my-
but presumably not in the same way. Because the Spencers have a sort of political history, don't they?
I know, but do they have M&Ms in the green room in the palace? That's what I want to know.
I've been commenting on this all day, and I'm going to drop my accent.
Thanks God.
And apparently the girl doesn't stand it anyway.
Well, I can't either.
I call it a royal weeding. And I actually found myself justified in calling it that, because the thing I noticed most today is that there was a brief appearance by Prince Andrew, who's waving at a helicopter, which figures because he's a pilot. No sign of Prince Edward. And effectively, what this has done is it's weeded out a whole chain of people in the monarchy, because the chain of succession has now changed, and therefore all those other tangents, like the Andrews and their sons and daughters and everything, are now out of the equation, because it goes straight from Queenie to Mark, to Charles, and then to...
Mark?
What's his name? Edward, yeah. So they've weeded out a lot of unnecessary strands of the royal family. But the thing I found very curious about this, and this is where I'm going to show my age, is that back in the day when Prince Charles married Princess Diana, there was no sense that they knew each other very well, or it was a very formal occasion. There was, whereas watching this, you just knew those people had been living together for 10 years already. Also, when Diana married Charles, there was a whole media circus, just as there has been this time, about her lineage, her virginity, and all sorts of rubbish that she had to go through before it was considered she was fit to marry Prince Charles.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah.
God, what a horrible thing. Doesn't it just tell you, though, how archaic some of the traditions are surrounding royalty and weddings?
Yeah, but it really also shows you how times have changed, because these two have been living together for 10 years, in effect. They clearly know each other as well as they need to do to actually, to get wedded.
What?
Well, perhaps weddings are archaic in themselves. Perhaps we shouldn't have weddings anymore.
I think
that's something else.
I think they are. I've been whenever I've been mentioning it all week, I've been referring to it as the royal coupling, but that was taken.
No, it sounds like a train, Mal.
No. It sounds like something completely different, actually. The royal coupling will not be televised.
Oh, but they used to do that in the olden days, though, didn't they?
Well, wasn't weddings originally for robbery?
They
Yes,
did. They had to
exactly,
have
Nina.
witnesses and invite people into the room while the deed was done.
Mm.
And then they would hang the sheet outside just to prove. So, I mean, yes, I think a lot of these traditions are archaic, but I do love weddings, and I think it's lovely to see a very happy couple, despite the stupid
I
hideous
think we
hats
should bring
everybody's
back
wearing.
male virginity.
I think
Yes.
I was very disappointed.
Make him bleed on a sheet.
Well, actually, just to come back to our normal topic, I was very disappointed that for all the fuss we got about the dress, we didn't hear about the knickers.
No, we didn't. Do you think
No,
they were
nor
blue?
shall we.
You see?
Do you think they were do you think that they were the things that were borrowed and blue?
I have no idea. I think we are. We're talking about royal knickers. You do understand that, don't you?
Blue.
Well, they weren't royal until...
Can you imagine if that was there's something old, something new, something borrowed, and something blue? Is it you actually had to borrow somebody's great grandmother's old blue knickers for your wedding?
That just sounds gross.
It does, isn't it?
Disgusting.
I'm going to say that.
I'm going to moan, right? I'm going to moan about this. I've never really had a wedding, not really, right? I didn't get any presents. I didn't get any good wishes,
No, I have
and you know, I'm kind of, I was resolutely single beforehand and against marriage, and I'm sort of resolutely single and against marriage afterwards. For me, this is just for me, right? But I want the presents, and I think I should get them for just staying off everybody else's patch, really.
I agree.
Everybody I know should buy me a present.
Do you think that it's true that their wedding list was actually at Argos? Which, for those of you who don't know, Argos is a store in England where you can buy stuff.
I think that the fact they might be putting fake leather sofas into Clarence House is probably not true.
No, they've probably gone to Tesco's, haven't they? Because they have Tesco Express, and they can get it delivered to their door.
Actually, what they've done for the public is if the public wish to contribute something, they've started up a trust, a charitable trust, so people can donate to that.
Oh, that's very cool.
But they have been receiving presents because people were talking about what they'd given them. So I think that's a bit of a change as well, because really, you know, the Brits talking about money is a bit of a...
Yes.
That's effectively what you're doing when you told them what they'd buy them. Anyway, I'm fed up of moaning.
Excuse me.
I want to hear from Nina. What's
What would you
depressed
like to
you
hear?
this week, Nina?
What's depressed me this week?
Yeah.
This cough I can't get rid of.
Oh.
Not a whole lot.
Then we have to change that.
Okay.
We have to change that right now. Mal, what do you have against weddings?
I'll tell you what.
Well,
What? Well, hang on a sec, Nina.
Let Mal go ahead, and then I'll tell you.
Okay, go on.
I don't particularly like the idea of the contract that marriage symbolises.
What is the contract?
Well, it's like, I mean, particularly, I don't like the religious form of wedding, you know, the symbolism of, you know, like, the religion side of it anyway. But, no, the contract is kind of, you know, I will love you and look after you and keep you and something or other for all the rest of your life. I mean, it just, you know, we live in a fast-changing age. I mean, the days, you know, you've only got to look around you. Look at Charles, you know, to realise that a lot of that is just a load of nonsense.
But they have changed some of it because she didn't say obey in her vows.
Yeah, you know, you look around, you know, and you see the couples who live together and they're quite happy and they get married and something suddenly all goes wrong.
Now, Mr. Robustus Hacks has put into Skype, that into the Skype chat, that marriage was from when life expectancy was the age of 35.
Well, that might...
In which case, he won't be getting married at all.
That's it, your chance is over now, Rob.
Sorry, Mal.
So, yeah, I mean, I think also a lot of it goes back to, I know it's changed a bit, but, you know, marriage and the contracts and all the hoo-ha that surrounds it is particularly favourable to men and less favourable to women, traditionally, and, you know, that was wrong too. I mean, you know, partnerships about equals, you know, not, you know, subscription to a sort of semi-slavery system. So I don't know, I've just had a long time grump about.
To avoid it.
Yes.
I think Mal's worried that the vows would be, I honour to put you into slavery for the rest of your life.
Yeah. I'm a bit concerned, Mal, about the fact that you don't want to say that you will love somebody forever. Or that, what was the other one? That you'll look after them. Those were the two of the three things that you cited in your objection to marriage.
Well, as somebody who's getting on a bit and a bit grumpy, I can see the merits to that. You know, you could sometimes turn around and think, oh, wouldn't it be great to have a partner who's going to look after me? But I mean, it works the other way too. You've got the obligations to the other one. And it's not about love. It's not about loving somebody or caring about somebody. It's just the, you know.
But it does help.
The length of the commitments in a framework where circumstances change, and they change so much more frequently in our made.
See, that's what I was going to hit on. I think that it's really bad that they're so easy to get into, but so difficult to get out of.
Yeah.
Would it be better if they were easy to get out of as well?
Actually, even in Linden Lab, you can Second Life rather, you can get married and it doesn't cost you a thing. But if you want to get divorced or separated, Linden Lab's charge
25 Linden.
Yeah. Well, let that be a lesson to you.
Well, you know, the reason they did that was they didn't want people hopping and jumping every 5 seconds.
I wonder if it's made any difference.
But it does, they do.
But it's my second life. I do what I want to do in my second life. If one wanted to hop around and do that, surely that's my prerogative.
But that's what makes, I don't know, I just don't believe in second life marriages too much, because that's exactly what it is. It's
no, but as an example, though, I don't know, I think vows should say, I promise to love, honour and show you how to use a microwave on occasion.
I think there should be something written in there about sex. I know there's this thing about I'll worship you with my body. I said, you know, how many times a week, darling?
And you know that's a grounds for divorce too.
What?
Once a year. Once a year. That's enough, isn't it?
Depends on who you married, I think. Yeah. I read something which sums it up for me, is that so it doesn't matter who you marry, you still wake up with somebody different the next day.
But aren't you different every day as you grow?
Precisely. Or not grow, as the case may be.
Or not brush your hair.
Recess. Yeah.
I think there's something to be said for partnerships at work. You know, you grow with the partnership. I think that's a very different thing from the formal contract of marriage.
I mean, talking about it, do you think, Nina, that there's been a lot of overkill on following this particular wedding? I mean, it's by every TV networks, by, you know, the social media. I mean, Twitter and Facebook went absolutely berserk on the whole thing. I mean, do you think it's overkill, or do you really think that it's a positive thing when there is a wedding that attracts so much global attention?
I think there's overkill in a lot of things. That is, you know, it's. I can't stand the stupid questions that the news people ask. You're, especially in a tragedy, what's the first thing they ask you? How did you feel? Come on. It's over sensationalism. It's what sells, and you know, it's just like Christmas. It's all marketing.
I know, but they also, I mean, the reporters today, I have to say, I was very pleased that they didn't natter on during the ceremony. That was quite good, because usually they say something really pathetic and just get it all wrong, but they did actually keep quiet throughout the whole of the ceremony, which was very nice. But just beforehand, there was a woman reporter from the BBC, and she was going out and asking members of the public, what do you think? And she got these 3 young boys who were probably about 14, and she wasn't even asking sensible questions. She went, "Why are you here?" I mean, and you can imagine.
Well, that's the question we're all asking
why
ourselves.
are you here?
Yeah.
I mean,
the answer
really?
is 42, isn't it?
Yes.
I also thought something that was rather funny was one of the commentators afterwards was saying something about there was supposed to have been like a million people in the crowd outside, and he said, well, obviously that included a lot of the usual loyalist flag-waving Brits, but it seems to include an awful lot of loyalist flag-waving Americans. Which is the height of the tourist, well, it's not the height of the tourist season, but I got to admit, they kept on walking up to people to interview, and there was this
they were all
American
nice.
accent, and there was a Russian guy, and there were Canadians, there were people from everywhere.
But don't you think it's right, on these huge televised, events, that reporters suddenly become inanely stupid? And when we were watching Catherine in the car driving to the church, if they got 2 women on to discuss fashion and dresses, and I think this one woman said, "Oh, and it's lace, and there's a bit more lace, and oh yes, and the veil is lace, and it looks like there's some lace, but we don't know how far down the lace goes, but it's very lacy." And it's just,
Nina,
Are you going to watch this?
Yeah, if I can
I
find
think you
it.
better now. Just
I'm
to
going to
check out
have. I
the
wish I
lace.
could have watched it before I came on.
I think most Americans have been watching replays all day. I guess it was 2 a.m. for them, but it was. You know what I'd love to see would be a DVD edit of this whole ceremony, but narrated by something like here's the wildlife guy, Richard Dimbleby, and he could comment.
David
Dimbleby, sorry, yeah.
No, the other, David Attenborough.
Yeah, okay, you can tell how tired I am today. Right, yeah, Attenborough, and he could comment on all the people coming into the church as if they were animals. This one's got his feathers up, and
Do you know, I remember when you brought up Diana's wedding, the one thing I remember them commenting about was how long the train was on the dress.
What I liked about Diana's wedding was the fact that it was so girly. Now, I'm not a girly girl, right? But she had just gone for the whole shebang. And you just thought, yeah, get the big flouncy frock and get the train that goes on forever and marry the prince. So they had done this whole fairy tale sort of thing. And that train, they had to have St. Paul's to fit the train into it.
Exactly. It wouldn't have fitted into any other place.
Well, didn't she need to ball it up and put it on after she got to the church?
So she made a couple of other dresses out of it afterwards, probably.
Or curtains.
Did Kate have a long train too?
No. She had a train, but it wasn't a long one, and it was a sort of medieval dress, I think.
It wasn't 5 miles long like Diana's?
No, it's very simple. It was a very beautiful dress, actually, I have to say.
in fact, her sister was carrying it for her behind, and her sister was just as good, actually. But the funny thing is, I saw a clip of the
Very
Diana
beautiful
wedding.
girls.
I saw a clip of the Diana wedding, and it took 4 men to carry her train.
Wow.
Whereas this one, it just took 1 sister. That's a big difference in the size of a train.
I want to know, what do you think those people were thinking about during the wedding? Because it was quite interesting watching from some of the camera angles and looking at people's faces.
Well,
Which people?
I'll tell you, the funniest thing was, I like the way that, firstly, I thought I couldn't help but love the way Tony Blair and Gordon Brown were snubbed and not invited. But also, the politicians, when they came in, they're made to sit behind the choir boys.
Yes, I saw that. I did notice.
The very elderly politician called Kenneth Clark, who was there in the centre behind the choir boys, and I swear he slept through the whole thing. So who knows what he was thinking? He was just snoozing.
Okay, so why did Gordon Brown, who was our last Prime Minister before this person, David Cameron, why did they snub him? That's a very unusual thing, wasn't it?
They weren't deemed fit to be awarded the Order of the Knights of the Garter. And they never have been, and therefore the other Prime Minister...
Could you explain that to our American visitor?
It's basically, I mean, it's like a lot of retired politicians get made into lords and all sorts of things like that, and they become Knights of the Garter. Blair and Brown have never been given that privilege. They're unfit for purpose, basically.
Okay.
Which,
We were rather shocked that Obama wasn't invited. I saw somebody's mentioned that. I was like, wow.
That's ridiculous.
I wonder.
Yeah, because I think it may have been because there were an awful lot of other dignitaries there, weren't there?
Yeah, I mean, but actually, it was very odd seeing some of some of the Arabs with their Arab costumes on in there too. So, yeah. I mean, also Obama has his hands full at the moment in the States, unfortunately. So maybe he was invited and couldn't make it.
Robustus has put something in there about took the attention off Obama's birth certificate. What's that about?
Oh, that's funny. I recently picked up on this, but I can't believe. Now,
hang on, let Nyna tell us, because she's a representative.
Oh yes, Nyna knows all.
Yeah.
It's something about that he was born in Hawaii and they don't have record of his birth certificate, or, it's so stupid that I didn't even pay attention to it.
All right, good.
It's the Tea Party people stirring stuff up, but
that's what I'm talking about. It's all sensationalism and who's going to get the most attention. And
it's also so juvenile. I mean,
exactly.
In this day and age, right, with the so-called terrorist threats and everything else and security, I mean, are you going to tell me that the civil servants in the US government did not check out that Obama was an American citizen before he even became president? Of course they did.
Exactly.
So, all this is just,
Ooh, what can we dig up now?
Yeah. I missed that for a long while because it was seemed like a crazy item.
What you all don't know is I live 20 minutes from Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
Do you want to know what fun that is?
Yeah, go on, tell us.
Oh, God.
Not, presumably.
Right, exactly. Whenever there's something to protest about, we get the repercussions of not being able to drive up and down a street or traffic or, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people are, what is happening in our audience right here? What is happening in our audience here? I mean, yeah, it is to be wondered. Somebody is saying, have they ever asked any of the white presidents where their birth certificate is?
Yeah, good point. Good point.
I think it was a media thing brought up to try and make America look interesting, while it was far more interesting to look at people's hats in the UK for the day.
No, they've had something to dig up on every president that we've had. So if it's a matter of a birth certificate or if it's a matter of girlfriends,
blowjobs,
yeah,
sorry,
or wives that are involved. And I'm going to cut myself off on that one.
That's another thing that's changed in the UK. I mean, even back in the days of Charles and Diana's marriage, the 80s, but certainly before that, if a politician was found with a prostitute or something shady like that, he was out of government immediately.
Well, it brought down the government, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Christine Keeler affair and stuff. Nowadays, and actually this is probably more since Blair than anything else.
It was Blair.
It barely a blink, unless it's something criminal, like filing for expenses you haven't got. That kind of moral servitude and sort of stigma has disappeared a little bit. I mean, moral in the bad sense, politicians don't really, they're not subjected over here, I think, to that kind of thing so much anymore.
Well, they're actually protected now.
Yeah, and
that's what happened under Blair.
Newspapers will always try, but they don't really get anywhere.
Anyway.
I think overall, though, the wedding was perhaps it was meant to be that way. So it was less of a political thing and really about two people getting married.
Yeah,
you know, which
right.
was a huge change in tradition where, you know, it wasn't necessarily the Queen's friends that were invited or Prince Charles's friends. You know, this is a young couple, and it reflected their wishes perhaps a little more.
Don't you find that the wedding was something pleasant to have when we've had so much chaos naturally in the world lately? It was a nice relief.
That's actually one of the things that's been making me grumpy for a long while, because I don't think it was any coincidence that shortly after Cameron and the so-called coalition government took over, it was announced. I mean, they have a very good way, especially conservative governments, of creating these feel-good events when, in fact, times are very bad. And, you know, it's almost a distraction. Like, you know, they make it a public holiday and it's like a massively orchestrated distraction. You know, look at the news on British television today, because that's where I saw bits of it. Barely a hint of coverage of Obama going to tornado damage. There were riots last night in Bristol, in Britain, where very violent riots about the opening of a superstore. Barely mentioned on the news. And people dying in, I think it's Syria, or
Syria.
Or is it? Yeah. Again, they're just in for like a 10-second soundbite on the headlines.
But Mal, every day we have those bad things happening, and every day we hear about those bad things. This was something nice that they could talk about for once.
Oh, sure. I mean, it is nice to have a nice thing to talk about, but you know, it's just the way the engineering of media. You know, it's like saying, right, this is the big thing of the day. It's make people feel good day. Don't report on anything else. You know, so the news channel was no longer a news channel. It was simply another coverage channel.
Well, I have to say that I found that quite a relief.
Yeah, I think most people do, and so it served its purpose. But I'm just being cynical here and a bit grumpy about the way these things are often manipulated.
No, I think, though, that the way news is reported now has changed so dramatically over the last, you know, 10 to 15 years, that we've almost become immune to the bad news. It's just, you know, I don't turn on the radio. I mean, I never did. When I was living in England, I didn't turn on the radio in the morning driving to school, simply because I don't want my children, the first thing that they hear in the morning on the radio is about, you know, somebody being stabbed, shot, robbed, you know, whatever it might be. I mean, it's a terrible way to start your day. And I think, you know, the good thing about the internet is that we can choose the news that we want to read, but it's still available every time you turn on the radio or the TV. So I think today was also a really important aspect of just having a bit of time off from all the terrible things that, you know, news people seem to revel in.
Yes, I agree.
Which is the, you know, let's talk about all the horrible things. You know, when you hear about something nice, generally it gets lost in all the crap that's going on in the world.
I think there's two sides to the coin. I'm a very big fan, although I don't really watch it every day anymore, but I used to, of a news service in the United States called Democracy Now! Amy Goodwin, and they have a lot of people from the UK independent newspapers, commentators and things, and one of them was on it today. It was like about a 20-minute segment for the headline of the day, which was very kind of anti the royal wedding, saying, you know, how it's being used and how we, you know, how we should be, you know, alarmed at ourselves for being a sucker for all this sort of stuff. And actually, you know, much as I was interested in that viewpoint and would probably agree with it in many ways, I did feel a bit disappointed. I thought, you know, well, can't they do that tomorrow? Or couldn't they have done it yesterday? Did they have to do it on this day? You know, because it, you know, there's something quite heart-warming, I've got to admit, about all these people on the streets having street parties and stuff, you know.
Well, something struck me today, which was the sheer internationalism of it all. The fact that it did spread so far. Why? I mean, we're a tiny little island here, the UK, a tiny little piece of land, you know, in the middle of a big sea thing with another big continent sitting next to us that we barely feel ourselves part of. And yet, you know, millions and millions and millions of people all over the world. So, you know, more people out of the UK than in the UK saw that wedding today.
Yeah, you know, it's a funny thing. I mean, America mystifies me. I mean, I was told earlier that it's, you know, they don't have that. They don't have more than 100 years of you know, a couple of 100 years of legacy, and they're just fascinated by all this tradition that they don't have. But I think the important thing to remember is that, you know, Britain doesn't have an empire anymore, but the monarchy were head of the empire. But what we still have, and what the monarchy are still head of, is the Commonwealth. And that includes Canada, Australia, New Zealand, all sorts of territories, where they're no longer imperial colonies, but they're part of the Commonwealth, which is a sort of, it means the British royal family is kind of a binding force on the international stage. So I think the Commonwealth thing is where a lot of that goes viral. I mean, the Australian Prime Minister was here, the Canadian Prime Minister was here, I think. But, you know, most the leaders of most Commonwealth countries were over for it.
Mm.
I don't know. I think for us in America, we're probably fascinated with the fact that you have a heritage. And we have heritages, but we have a lot of different heritage. And when you're made up of 4 or 5 of them, like I am, we don't have one set one. So we don't say I'm English and Italian and German and Albanian. I'm an American.
Yeah.
See, and I would love to have more of that ethnic root background history, which I don't have.
I think there's an ambiguity that, you know, there are 2 sides to that particular coin, because we're in a place here that defines you by where you're from and what class you're from, for example. So, well,
that's I was just saying. That's what fascinates me is that you have a rich culture.
We do have a rich culture. I think also that the Brits went out and marched around and got an empire where nobody could be bothered to stand up and wonder what they were all doing there, right? And managed to get an empire together, and then invited them all back home. And now they're a bit pissed off that they did that last bit. So when people say they're Albanian or they're Greek or they're Italian or whatever, there is a double-edged sword to saying those things, because it's all very well to be that unless you become, you know, you're doing somebody out of a job, for example, and then that particular culture is put up and used against you. So there is a double-edged sword. It is not all, you know. Here we go around Mulberry Bush. Yeah. I think one of the things that happened today, I don't think it's, Crap Mariner's talking about refusal to assimilate. Actually, it's a vicious circle, actually, sometimes, crap, because it's about whether or not people are allowed to assimilate. So, you know, it is two-way, always. I mean, these questions are deeply, deeply complicated.
Well, I'm quite grumpy because I've got no idea what you're bloody talking about.
We're talking about race, darling, but we're just...
Oh, right, okay. All right, can we get back onto hats at some point?
No, I was talking about being...
Yeah, natural.
Hereditary. I wasn't talking particular races.
No. But that's what happens here with that.
Yeah, no, I think what Nyna was saying is, like, if you know, she considers herself American and she's assimilated from a lot of different backgrounds, and therefore she really can only consider her American because there's no thread of history.
Exactly.
She can directly follow. On the other hand,
I'm the mutt, and you guys are the purebreds. How's that?
You ain't talking to a purebred here, believe me.
From what I understand, you can take it the other way, Nyna, and that is that you know, you go back to the Pilgrim Fathers. A lot of these were religious escapees who were far.
Actually, I am from that.
Yeah,
there you go.
But they are still living in communities.
You're more Brit than I am.
But those people are still living in communities where they followed the tradition right back to the, you know, European roots or wherever the roots were. So I think it's a mix. I mean, there's some wonderful things about America in terms of, you know, it is, you know, you're like you take an oath to be American, you know, rather than and that supersedes everything else. It technically supersedes politics and religion and everything else. And I think that's one of the good things the American system has. One of them. I'm not being grumpy enough tonight, am I?
You're being too grumpy, actually, Mal, if I may say so.
Okay, well, do you want me to get on to BT and Microsoft?
Yes, please. Let's lighten it a bit.
I think I've sat on a slice of cake.
Yeah. Why have you been grumpy today, Mal Burns writer?
Well, I've had very little sleep. The festivities of the day did actually wake me up. I went to bed at 5 a.m. local time here in the UK, and I was up by about 9 a.m. local time here in the UK. And for somebody who sleeps 10 hours a night on average, that's not good. So I've been on surviving on caffeine. And I'm a born cynic. But the other thing that's made me grumpy, ladies and gentlemen, as you can tell from my
from the turkey,
from the fact that I'm a turkey today, is that shortly before we went on air, I logged in 40 minutes beforehand for a sound check, froze, had to reboot an entire computer because I couldn't get out. Did it again. Was in by 2:30, second lifetime, froze. Did it again 10 minutes later, and all I can say is I've been talking here, I've managed to repair Windows, but I'm too nervous to press any buttons till I find out what went wrong. But yeah, I'm grumpy because the BT saga I mentioned last week, where they have been switching the internet on and off for microseconds, which is just enough microseconds to completely close all my active sockets, which I need, continues. And I suspect that the momentary collapse of the hardware firewall is also resulting in these problems I'm having. I've got a feeling they may be related. So I am seriously grumpy about the state of online providers and online services, for that matter. You sign up for things, they disappear. You sign up for things, they don't do what they say they're going to do.
You pay for things.
I'm being grumpy about more than
You're not just signing up for them, you're paying for them.
Well, even worse. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Pay for something, it should do its job, shouldn't it?
Oh, Nina, we've just got 50... What have we got left? About 10 minutes, right? They're not all going to be dedicated to you unless you want them. But very happy for you to have them. What really is your bugbear?
My background, as in...
What do you know? Your bugbear. Is there anything that really annoys you about the world?
Totally independent of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Totally independent. What really bugs me about the world?
It doesn't have to be international.
Well, what really bugs me about the world is that do people just need to understand that there's always somebody worse off than you. And you've really got to just kind of keep up with yourself, be the best that you can be. And it really bothers me when we just get down on other people about whatever it is that they are different about. And I just get so upset with negative things and stupidity. I mean, I'm not the most politically intelligent person there is. My little world is just all I can handle right now. So when I have to spread out into the world itself, it gets a little bit too much for me to handle, to hear all the negativity all the time. Are you losing crumbs out of your hat?
No.
She's shaking her head, and I see crumbs on the floor. She's eating her hat. Okay. But no, that's just basically what just drives me insane, that people are so short with one another, and they can't just relax and take things as it's meant, not look for deeper meanings and bad things and everything everybody says. Well, i.e. my purebred joke.
Oh. Why? Has people been taking horrible
Well, no,
meeting
but I know
thing.
that's definitely gonna hit me one.
Well, at some point, you mean.
Yeah.
Oh,
I have a
not in
strange
this
view
room.
on things sometimes.
Okay, Slimmy.
I'll tell you what makes me really grumpy is going to a public toilet and there's no loo roll left.
Yes.
Really, it really makes me grumpy. Because the person before knows that there's no loo roll left, but they run on out and don't say anything, and you go in thinking, yeah, and then when it's too late, you notice that there isn't any.
Mm.
That's definitely
So do you carry it with you?
grumpy about.
Yes,
Well,
I do. I do carry a thing of tissues, but it is very annoying because usually because women carry handbags quite a lot. So what you do is you hang your handbag. I'm not going to go into details here, everybody, by the way, but you hang your handbag on the hook on the door and then you sit down if you're a lady and then you realise.
Mm.
Oh, there's a lot worse than no
The
paper.
toilet's out of reach. Yes, I get you.
There's a lot worse to being a lady in a public loo and no
that's true.
paper.
Well,
That is
I'm
true.
And I always try to have a packet of Kleenex or something on me just in case.
So we ask you then, Mal.
Yeah, I totally agree. That is the worst thing. You go into a public convenience and find no facilities for being up. Terrible, terrible, terrible.
Mine is
Or-
people not turning up.
Yes,
Or being
that's
there,
annoying too.
being there in their phantom turkey form. But then again,
Oh, I see. No, it wasn't meant specifically against you, Mal. In fact, it wasn't meant against you at all. I'm talking about in real life, really. Well, although it does affect Second Life as well. It's just people not turning up and thinking that that's okay.
Oh, you mean
Especially
the lack
toilet
of
roll attendants in public loos. It's very
Oh,
annoying
well,
when they don't
actually-
turn up. See?
and actually, this is, I think, more of a problem sometimes in Second Life than even in real life. I mean, people who
What,
don't
the loo?
turn up bad news anyway, but no, not the loo. People who don't turn up are bad news anyway, but it seems to happen an awful lot in Second Life. People just say, oh, I'll meet you so-and-so, and then they're not there at the time and place they specified, and they seem to think it's all some kind of separate reality where you don't have to, take care of the meeting
Toilet
point
roll.
things.
Well, maybe that's the case for them. Maybe it is about, how you define your reality in Second Life. About arriving at the... Yeah.
I'm afraid I'm one of these
understand
people
the
that runs
definition.
by a diary and an appointment system, so I can't, I get confused without it, so.
But you have a point. People don't realize that when you give your word here, that's about really the only thing that you actually have in Second Life is your word. And if you're not keeping it, what good are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jolly good point.
Right. Okay. So we're getting towards the end of the programme now, and I'm going to ask Slimmy to talk about our public face.
Well, my public face appears to be stuffing a face full of cake right now. So my very unpublic face, which luckily none of you can see in real life right now, is going to tell you all about where you can find us. If you would like to follow us on Twitter, please do so at Grumpy Old Avatar. We do have a blog, Grumpy Old Avatars, and that's at Blogspot, so blogspot.com, Grumpy Old Avatars. Each week, you can catch the replay live at metaversetv.com, Grumpy Old Avatars. And there isn't anywhere else, really. Well, I'm far too grumpy to remember where it is.
Yeah, the embeds for the program pop up all over the place, so just keep watching wherever.
And if you would like to, and if you'd like to be a guest, and you've got lots of grumpy things to talk about, we'd absolutely love to have you. Grumpily, of course.
Yeah, we're not necessarily going to be pleasant. Thank you so much, and for listening to our interminable chit-chat about things that you haven't seen.
Well,
Which
I was
doesn't
kind of
help.
lost for a good half hour.
Poor lamb. I don't know. But you see, we are excited. I think ultimately that's the thing. That in some way, whether it be for the good or for the bad, we are excited about a wedding. And ultimately, it's left that wedding has been left with a very particular generation, I think, now. It is their future king and queen that they're seeing. The rest of us will probably be dead. Okay, Mal. Do you want to check this out?
I don't know about cooking the turkey, but I'm grumpy enough that this turkey is going to cook itself. And with that, I will say good morning, afternoon, evening, or tomorrow, depending on wherever and whenever you are. Grump, grump.